Freelancers, small business owners, consultants, and solopreneurs. Some people are just drawn to working for themselves. I'm Owen Roth. In this show, I have conversations with self-employed folks about their career journeys. Welcome to the Bossless Path podcast. And here we go. Today, I'm joined by Cecilia Mihaylo, a Spanish interpreter here in the Willamette Valley, Oregon. Cecilia, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you do?
Well, I'm an interpreter. I'm a Spanish interpreter, mainly a court interpreter. I like to think that I'm the voice for those who wouldn't have one without me.
You're doing live interpreting in the courts, like you're there in the courts.
Correct. Okay. Yes. I'm in the courts. Well, I'm here in the Benton County Courthouse Tuesday and Wednesdays, pretty much all day. And I'm just there for anybody who has limited English skills.
You work as a contractor then for the county, or?
Correct. Well, not for the county. I work for the state. I'm a contractor for the state.
Gotcha. We know each other because we met at a conference at Oregon State University recently. You do events as well.
I do. I do a little bit of conference interpreting.
Is there anything else that you interpret for?
Occasionally medical, educational, radio, television, mostly radio.
Gotcha.
And conferences.
It sounds like the courts are your consistent work.
The courts are who pay my mortgage. Let's put it that way.
It's nice to have that consistent work.
I will not survive without them.
Well, how did you find yourself in interpreting? What's your story been?
I did not go looking for interpreting. The interpreter profession basically fell on my lap. Really? That was more years than I want to admit to. I was living in Arkansas at the time. Through a friend of a friend, I was talking to volunteering at the local schools. The idea initially was that I was going to go and help the teachers with the students and parent-teacher meetings.
Okay.
But from there, I was asked to go and help take a child with the nurse to a dental visit and then to a medical visit. And then a mother needed to apply for the week stamps, and things just kind of mushroom from there. One day I found myself in court without an idea of what I was doing.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty scary.
I bet.
For the people that I was interpreting for.
Not for you, though.
No, because I had no idea. They talk about the one who nothing knows, nothing fears. I had no idea of how much I could mess up by doing what I was doing. I had the best intentions of the world. But, that was back in the dark ages. There was no certification. And in Arkansas, it was probably 3 or 4 years after that when somebody just said, "You're a good interpreter. Have you considered certification?" And I was just like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And then my first day on an interpreter class, the teacher started mentioning all the things that you should not do. And I wanted to disappear. I wanted to slide down in my chair and disappear because I had been doing everything wrong.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea what I was doing. I was doing everything wrong. And
like what was wrong?
Talking to people like, he said this and that. He's asking if you this and that. I wasn't using an interpreter. If there is one thing that you should know about interpreting is that you talk to the people directly, and the interpreter does his things over here, and you talk to them directly, like you and I are talking here.
Right.
The way I was doing it is, ask her if, what's her name? What's your name? Maria. She say her name is Maria.
Sure.
That's the kind of interpreting I was doing.
That's what anyone would do, right? Like without proper training.
Anybody who has not been trained.
Sure,
yes.
Yeah, that's the natural way of...
So in interpreting world, we talk about being invisible. If I do my job correctly, you don't even know that I'm there because you are talking to the person directly.
Sure.
And it's a question of common courtesy. If I'm talking to you, I'm looking at your face, not looking at the interpreter, right?
Yeah.
So, but those were the things I did not know.
Who asked you if you had considered the certification?
It was actually a federally certified interpreter.
Okay.
She saw me. I was so pitiful. She just felt sorry for me. So she's the one who gave me information. At the time, I didn't know that interpreting profession existed as a profession. I was just, somebody asked me to interpret, sure, I go and do it without having any idea of what I was doing. But again, that was back in the dark ages.
And you say the dark ages, like it's changed where you have to be certified now.
Well, you had to be certified back then also, but many people didn't know.
Many people, like the courts or the
courts,
clients?
The hospitals, yes.
Oh, wow.
You may have a law, but if nobody knows it, it's as if it doesn't exist.
That's pretty wild to imagine that there's ignorance
at that level.
That level, yeah.
Well, there was a time where here in Oregon, somebody came in to court and needed an interpreter. And they say, oh, do you know somebody who speaks Spanish? Oh, yes, the janitor speaks Spanish. Bring him over. And that was the kind of interpreter that you got.
Wow.
And very scary. That's the way it was in a hospitals too. You know, somebody who knew somebody who speaks your language. And so
I can see why
not training at all.
Yeah, I can see why that'd be scary because, I mean, there's a lot on the line if you misinterpret conveying medical information in that circumstances or legal details in a court.
Well, and you may be able to speak the language, but not necessarily are familiarized with the lingo. You know, when it comes to court, we talk about the court is not English and Spanish, is English legalese, and Spanish legalese too. There are so many words in the courts that have a completely different meaning. If you talk about a moving party, you're probably thinking a U-Haul and a bags of pizza and a six-pack, right? But a moving party in court is the person who initiates procedure. In court, a continuance is not that we're going to follow up. It's a postponement. We're going to continue this until, next week or whatever.
I see. Is the certification course that you did, is that you're learning all these legal terms as well as just the rules of interpreting?
Among other things, yes. I think the most important part of the interpreter training is the ethics part. Of course, I knew about confidentiality. I'm not going to be talking about, somebody else, what I learned from here. But I didn't know how important it was. I had no idea about, actually interpreting everything that has been said, even if it's something that may not be very helpful for you. But if you say it in court, I'm going to interpret.
Yeah.
About not interpreting for family members or friends or anything that will have an effect on me. For years, I interpret for my mother anytime she had to go to doctor appointments. And think about how embarrassing it is for an adult woman to talk about certain personal issues with a medical doctor and using her teenage daughter as an interpreter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let alone court procedures and police interviews and everything else.
Yeah, I could see how that'd be, not very desirable.
It's kind of scary.
It sounds like you got into this fairly young then.
I was in kindergarten.
When you started on the unofficial, you were in kindergarten, yeah.
Yeah, I was in kindergarten, yes. I was in my 20s.
Gotcha.
So
When in your 20s at that point when you
when I
mentioned
was in Arkansas,
you're in
yes.
Arkansas and you started getting you got certified in
When I
speaking.
start the certification process, yes.
What brought you out to Oregon? Because we're in Oregon now.
My now ex-husband.
Ah, I see. Yes, that happens.
And at the time, I came to Oregon in 2000. And at the time, Oregon was really opening the road for everything, for everyone else in the court interpreting world.
Mm,
Uh, Oregon was at a time uh, some decades ahead of Arkansas when it came to interpreting. Right now, I think we're kind of about the same level.
interesting. Did you have to get certified with Oregon then when you arrived here?
Yes, I went through I had already started my process, my training,
Mm-hmm.
but it was in Oregon that I obtained my course certification.
Gotcha. Okay. So you could hit the ground running when you arrived here.
Well, got here with 7 years of experience.
And what was the process like finding clients?
I didn't have to find clients. I put my name up with the courts. I took the training, and basically they told me, okay, you just go to court and, look for the TCA and tell them that you need to do some court observation. So in Oregon, my first client was the courts, and then the attorneys that come to courts, and you start passing your business cards, and then the rest is pretty much word of mouth.
Sure.
An interpreter has an assignment and needs somebody to help them, and knows you and invites you to work with them. So
I see. In my world, I label things as projects, a video project, a photography project. But with you, assignment, it
we
sounds like
call them
is the
assignments. Yes.
terminology. Would assignment be something that goes over a long period of time? If it's, say, a medical, like they have a hospital stay, would you have an assignment with a client and you're just there for their entire stay at a hospital?
It depends.
Mm.
I don't do medical interpreting anymore,
Oh, okay.
but I did at the beginning. I did a lot of telephonic interpreting
Mm.
because I wanted to have the experience.
Mhm.
That's what you get. The way you learn is by doing it.
Mhm.
And sometimes you're not doing it very well, but you're still doing it. So when it comes to medical assignments, normally they call you for one appointment. It's not necessarily that you follow this patient all through, their medical history, surgery, whatever. But if you do work at a hospital, you may see the same patient, over and over again. In court, because I have been in Lynn Benton counties for the last 20 some years,
Mhm.
I do have what I call my frequent flyers, my repeat customers.
Yeah.
And sadly, in some cases, I have seen the parents, the children as children, and now the children as adults,
Mm.
and even having some dealing with the grandbabies that are now on the system. This is very sad. That's not the kind of cases that you want to know about it.
Sure.
But not because I'm assigned to a person and I'm going to be in court every time that person comes over.
Mhm.
I'm assigned to be in court, so many days a week, and that person just happened to have their appointments on those dates.
What are the rules as far as like building relationships with people you interpret?
No, you
Yeah.
don't build
Okay.
relationships with
So
people.
it's similar to like the medical field, keeping those worlds separate, the profession.
Separate, yes. And in fact, if somebody who I know, one of my friends will come to court, I will have to, say, I'm sorry, I cannot interpret for this case, or something that will be, you know, something that has to do with my personal life, conflict of interest,
Sure.
a real or perceived conflict of interest. I will put distance to that.
Mm-hmm.
but definitely not making friends with the clients. No.
Yeah. If you are interpreting, say, in the courtroom, and there's multiple people who need interpreting for, are you doing that, like playing the role of interpreter for multiple people, or does in the court system does each person individual need their own interpreter for legal
Uh,
reasons?
it depends. If we're talking about arraignments,
Okay.
when 40 people shows up and 17 of those need an interpreter, the interpreter who's there is going to take care of interpret for that person, one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a case like a trial that is going to be several days and multiple witnesses, very likely we'll have a second interpreter, sometimes even a third interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon has this fantabulous rule that anything that is more than 2 hours, we get a second interpreter. And that's fabulous because we can take turns. In a court procedure, everybody's talking. Defense, witnesses, the district attorney, the judge, everybody's talking.
Mm-hmm.
And one stay quiet while the other one speak. Well, the interpreter never stops speaking.
Yeah.
Interpreter is interpreting for everybody.
Yeah.
So we get very tired. And we have a second interpreter to help us out. So we may do a multi-day trial with 2 interpreters, just kind of switching back and forth.
Yeah, working as a team to relieve each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine it also be like mentally taxing too.
You don't realize how tired you are until you try to come back and just, what happened? And you cannot remember.
Oh, okay.
That happened in the conference. Remember that conference in OSU?
Yeah.
I was working with another interpreter, if you remember.
Yeah.
We were taking turns.
Was there 3 of you or 2 of you?
There were 2 of us.
2. Okay.
And there were some really interesting presenters. And I was thinking, oh, that's good. I want to remember that. But thinking back at the time, it was always like, what was that? I don't know. Don't remember.
Yeah.
You are so concentrated in switching between English into Spanish and Spanish into English that you lose track of. There is no room in your brain for anything else.
Sure, yeah. You're filling up the bandwidth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine what that'd be like. But you can still hear the words, obviously. It's not full autopilot where you've disengaged.
No, definitely you cannot disengage. But it is your concentration is in the next bit of information, not the whole chapter, but the next sentence.
Right.
Because you are hearing one sentence while you're interpreting this sentence that the person said just before.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's always fascinating to me how people like yourself are able to do that, because
it takes practice. That's all it takes. It's not magic.
Yeah.
It just takes practice.
It seems like magic.
Interpreters are not born. Interpreters are made. Okay. All it takes is a lot of practice.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of practice, so you're probably quite good at it.
I like to think so.
Yeah. You said it found you as a career.
Yeah.
Was there any point throughout the years that you've been doing it that like there was an opportunity to work for someone like more as an employee versus just being an independent contractor?
Yes. When I came to Oregon in 2000, there was the opportunity of becoming court interpreter, staff interpreter, that's what they call them.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't really sure that I wanted to be chained to the state desk 40 hours a week. Mm-hmm. But at the time, the interpreter supervisor was a fabulous lady by the name of Ali Robbins. She said, Cecilia, you are working lots of hours right now because you are in Lynn and Benton counties. There is a need. I'm not saying that you are not going to be able to work that many hours, but you're going to have to go farther away to log that many hours. If we put a staff interpreter in Lynn County. And I was like, okay. So it wasn't my best interest to do that. And at the time, I had small children. So
When you say do that, you mean become a staff employee.
staff employee.
So that's what you did at that
So
moment.
then I took the job. And then during 2011, there were some severe budget cuts. And my position went away.
Oh, wow.
It was really sad. I didn't think, you take a job with the state thinking this is safe, right?
Yeah, very stable is what I would think.
So it was a very big disappointment when they said, okay, we're cutting all the interpreter positions that are not in the metro area.
Wow.
They just tell us, okay, we're going to let you go, but we still need you. So we're going to cut your, no benefits of any kind, no vacations, no nothing. But we still need you. So we're just going to hire you for the hour now, by the hour now. You get in the point where, okay, I really don't like this, but I don't have an option. So
when they did that, they're saying we're going to hire you by the hour now as a consultant. Were they saying here's what we're going to pay, or were you able to negotiate what your rate?
No, not really, because the state is the biggest provider of interpreting work in Oregon. Basically, they tell you how much they are going to pay you, and if you don't want to do it, well, you don't have to work for them.
So there wasn't a lot of positive that came out of that change.
It was like pulling the rug from under your feet, just like, okay, now what do I do? But I survived. And then, definitely being a state employee has its benefits, but you don't have the ability of choosing the assignments that you want to work or bailing out of the courts to go and take a conference like the one at OSU. So
it sounds like from that point on, 2011, when you got let go as an employee, and then that's when you started still working for the courts as a freelance.
Yes.
How did it work with the court? Is it like they keep you on for month by month as a contractor?
No, they offer you assignments and you decide if you take them or not.
Okay.
They normally book you out 1 or 2 months ahead of time. I will say that I have 45 days of work at any time. But you don't have to accept them. They just offer, just like, okay, this is what we have. Those are the cases we have. Those are the hours in these counties. And then you say, okay, I want this, and that. Or I don't want to take them. I'm going to go on vacations now. I'm going to go and see my grandbaby in Arizona. So, no, I'm not available.
That must be nice having that ability to do that.
It is. It is great to have that ability. Yes.
This might be a difficult question to answer, but if you had been given that choice voluntarily, saying, Cecilia, it's prior to 2011 and you're still an employee, if you knew that it was an option to be a consultant and freelance, would you take it at that point or?
No. In fact, I will not have dared to let go of the state. If they had not cut me off, I think I will still be working there. There is this idea that, okay, you're building up retirement, you have all the benefits. And when you have children, especially, if you have medical benefits, you have dental, those are, and you know that on the first day of the month, you're going to get a check for sure.
Yeah.
It's super hard to let go of that. No, I will have never left.
Yeah.
But now I'm glad I have the freedom that I do.
Yeah.
You either have the time or you have the freedom. And or you have the money.
Yeah, I was going to say there's some other things in the equation too. Yeah. Security, money. Yeah. When you transitioned to doing the consultant, the freelancing, did you seek any business advice from anyone?
Yes. I went first than anything else. I went to the employment department. What do I do?
Yeah.
So, and of course they say, oh, well, you have to apply, start applying for other jobs in order to collect unemployment, because I have been working for the state for 10 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So I start, the first 3 months, I must have done 150 applications.
Mm-hmm.
But first than anything else, nobody was paying what I was making before. And of course, I wanted just that much money.
Right.
I wanted all my benefits. Um, but there were things that I really didn't want to do. I really didn't want to. Can I type? Yeah. Do I want to be working in an office? No, I don't think I can want to.
Mm-hmm.
I did go uh, to work for a Western Oregon University for a while as a Spanish instructor
Oh, okay. You
uh,
did some teaching.
because I thought I really needed the benefits. I still didn't have the confidence that I could pay for my own benefits.
Mm.
So, yeah, I did that. Well, I had worked as an instructor before I fell into the interpreting world. So that was kind of okay, I can't do this, but I cannot do it anymore. I don't want to do that.
No. Why not?
I'm very good at these very intense, very short-lived relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine. My brother's a teacher. My dad was a teacher too, and my sister-in-law. And yeah, it's from the stories I hear, it can be quite draining.
And I thought that teaching at undergrad level was going to be different. It wasn't.
Mm.
So I was expecting, okay, they're here because they want to. This is, I'm not going to have to be checking homework or
Mm.
telling people to study. It's like, but no,
Yeah.
you still have to take them by the hand. And no, I'm not good at that.
Well, know your strengths, right? Know what you're good at and what you like.
Well, and I guess because my years in the interpreting world, I'm kind of used to be jumping from one area to another.
Mm.
I mean, even though I'm still in the court, I'm going from a domestic violence case to um, a driving under the influence case to, so many other things. So maybe I just got a little bit of ADHD or something. I cannot stay with one thing, for too long anymore. It's just
You enjoy the
boring.
variety.
I do. And I even enjoy driving from one court to another,
Mm.
going from Albany to Corvallis to Eugene to Newport or Salem or Portland yeah.
Yeah, up and down the valley and over to the
Yeah.
coast.
Yeah.
Do you charge for mileage then when you do that?
Yes, the state pays mileage and travel time.
That's nice. Yeah.
So it's kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, listen to my books on tape while I drive to Newport. And in the summer, that's fabulous. In the
Yeah.
winter, not so much. But
I'm surprised you'd want to listen to books on tape. I think you'd want to give your ears a rest from dialogue.
no, not at all.
Okay.
Well, I'm a library worm.
Mm.
So if I'm not reading, I'm here listening to books on tape. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have some time to do that while you're on the clock.
on the car, yeah,
Yeah.
on the clock, yes, and getting paid for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
That
there's
works.
not such a no better thing.
And you said you kind of hinted that you don't do written interpretation. You said
I
typing wasn't a big thing for you.
I do some transcription work,
Mm.
um, mostly recordings of jail calls or police interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I do some of that just in order to fill up the blanks, when I'm not working in court.
Mm-hmm.
I do some of that, yes, but that's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
I like to talk, and I like to talk to different people.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've picked the right area then to focus on.
If my elementary school teachers had known that I was going to make a living by using my voice, they will not have made me to shut up all the time.
Yeah, well, yeah, you turned it into a skill, or not a skill, an asset.
A profession.
Yeah,
That's how I make my living.
yeah, that's great. Speaking of your childhood, did you have an idea of what you thought you wanted to do when you were younger?
I didn't even know that interpreter existed as a profession.
Mm.
When I was very, very young, I like airplanes. So I thought I was going to go and study aeronautic engineering. By the time I hit high school, I decided, no, this is not what I want to do.
Mm.
So I went to college to become a psychologist.
Oh,
And I
interesting.
did work as one until I married and moved to the United States. And then I went to get a degree on education. And then I discovered interpreting, and that's where I am.
The rest is history, as they say. It sounds like that's where you see your future too, is you'll be doing this until you retire.
I don't see doing anything else.
Yeah.
In fact, if I had all the money in the world, if I win the lottery, that I don't buy tickets, but
It's going to be difficult to win then.
it's pretty hard. But if I had all the money in the world,
Mm-hmm.
I will still be doing what I'm doing. Maybe not that many hours,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely I will still be doing this.
That says a lot.
Well, I do feel that I'm doing a service
Mm-hmm.
to my people. And when I talk my people, I'm talking about the Hispanics that come over here without an education, that didn't have the advantages that I did, who don't speak the language. So I do like to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that interpreters are important, not only in the courts, but in the medical fields, in the social fields, in the schools, everywhere. So yeah, I like this.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's a highly valuable thing to people, as you're saying. So, yeah, that's great to hear that you enjoy it so much, as well as
I like
giving
it.
value to
Yeah.
people. Yeah. Do you see yourself like fading down into like retirement and just working less as you get older,
Never.
or are you just
No.
you're gonna go until you
If
can't?
my hearing holds, if my memory holds,
Yeah.
I'm going to stay here. I'm going to be 90 years old. I'm going to be coming to court in a walker, just to interpret for people. I do like to help people who is now coming into the interpreting world.
Mm.
I have several people who has shown interest, and I'm always encouraging them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, I help you. It can be done. Yes, yes, you can. But I think many people, young people, is scared of the interpreting world because they believe that that interpreting as a profession is gonna disappear. They do believe that Google or artificial intelligence is gonna take over our profession.
Yeah. Do you believe that?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
Why is that?
Have you tried to use Google Translate for anything important?
No, but also I don't speak a second language well enough to.
Don't.
Yeah. No, it's.
I mean, it's good to give you an idea of what it is, the gist of it, but it will not. Is not there yet. Will it get there? One day, I don't know, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it's going to be on my time.
Yeah. Yeah, but you said the people that you're mentoring, young interpreters, it might be in their timeline, in their working career.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I honestly doubt it. I mean, there are so many things that we think the technology is going to take over, but when you want a professional product, you do go to a professional, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, photography, digital cameras. Everybody has a camera on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody takes pictures. Everybody takes videos.
Sure.
Yet you are here making a living as a photographer, as a videographer.
True.
So
That is true. But yeah, I mean, my profession's a great one as an example of just like, I think my area is quite different now than, 30 years ago, like because the tools
definitely.
are there. So even though me and other people still might be able to make a living today in that world, I feel like it's harder to make a living. Maybe I should say the barrier of entry is different now because the tools are readily available.
I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, professional tools are still very expensive.
Sure. And well, there's two things there. I guess I only touched on one of them. One is the tool. So like before access to like, film photography, when that was all there was, less people got into it. It was less accessible. The learning curve is higher. Digital photography is quite easy. And it's relatively affordable at the low level. But I think the other thing is with photography and video is like some people, small businesses say they don't see a need for professional, as they would put it. They're like, well, we get good enough images just on our own phones or doing what have you. I only speak from my own experience of especially in a small town like Corvallis. Some businesses don't have as much money and they're not going to spend it on the professional
Well,
photography.
I don't think those people who don't have much money, I don't think they spend money on professional photography before either.
That's true.
You know?
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So people who want quality are willing to pay the price.
Well, that part is true for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I guess time will tell as far as interpreting in the digital technology as far as, yeah,
I don't think our professions are going to go away.
I hope not.
I mean, if anything, it's going to get each time, more specialized and
Sure. It changes.
for people who really can do it. But I don't think it's going to disappear.
I mean, that part, I certainly agree with that. The landscape changes in a given profession. I think that's much more common than an entire profession being totally decimated and extinct, essentially.
And somebody told me that interpreters are not gonna be supplanted by technology, but they are gonna be supplanted by interpreters who use technology.
Mm.
If you keep yourself on top of everything, of things that are happening, I certainly 30 years ago I did not see myself interpreting on Zoom conferences. 20 years ago, I started doing some telephonic interpreting, and it's not as good as in person
What do you mean not as good?
because a lot of communication is visual.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can see if I can see your expression, I know if you are pulling my leg. I can tell if you are being fictitious. I can tell, which I cannot see over the telephone.
Right. But how does that play in, excuse me, how does that play into interpreting if you said earlier that you're just interpreting the words and not inflected meaning?
No, I didn't say that.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't mean that.
You didn't
No,
say that. I was paraphrasing.
no, I don't interpret words. I interpret meanings,
Okay.
and I don't. If I don't understand the meaning, I cannot interpret your words. Because if all I get is garbage, all I'm going to put out is garbage too.
Yeah.
So, no, I do interpret the meaning, and sometimes I may not understand the meaning if I'm not looking at you, or if I'm just getting the audio feedback. Is hard. You see that on the. Do you have Netflix?
Sure.
Do you see videos with subtitles, foreign
Yeah.
films? Sometimes the subtitles do not match at all what's going on on the video, on the screen, because I'm guessing because the persons who were doing the subtitles were not provided with the images.
The visuals, and they just had the audio.
Yes, and we're talking about something like, okay, somebody's going through a low ceiling and say, duck. And, the translations comes like, dog the animal, pato.
Pato, yeah.
And just like, makes absolutely no sense, right?
Yeah.
So,
how do you say duck in Spanish? I'm curious.
pato.
No, I know that one. How do you say the action?
Agáchate.
Agáchate?
Agáchate. Mm-hmm. Agáchate. Just. So, that's just a silly example, but.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting to hear. I guess because I think prior to meeting you, I used the word like interpreting and translating interchangeably, but that's not
No, we like to say the translators is for the written form. We translate some documents, translate birth certificates, translate, contracts, but we interpret everything that is verbal. The translators have the ability of taking the document home and consult dictionaries and, do a deep search. What the interpreters, if we have a teammate, maybe looking for the terms for us while we're interpreting, but sometimes you have to come up with something.
I was going to ask, how do you do that if you're interpreting for a conference and you have a speaker who's using a whole type of terminology that you're not familiar with, either in English or Spanish?
Well, we try to get, for conferences, we definitely get information ahead of time.
Okay.
Not always all the information, but we do get at least some information. We know what we're talking about. But when you have a term that you don't know the word, you know what it is, but you don't know the word. Like, let's say one that I came across was barbed wire. I know what barbed wire is. I know the word in Spanish, but I didn't know it in English.
Okay.
So I know what they were talking about. And so I say, the wire, the twisted wire with pokey things that they use to corral animals in the ranches.
Dictionary definition.
Yeah, I get my point across.
Right.
Not ideal, but because I knew what it was.
Right.
Now, if it's something that I don't know what it is at all. When I recently moved to Oregon during a trial, they were talking about a combiner. Well, I had no clue what a combiner is. So I asked the person that I was interpreting for, I said, what is a combiner? And he said, es una combina. I'm just like, I'm still not understanding. I understood by the context. I knew it was some kind of agricultural, implement, machinery, something, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So I had to ask, well, what does combiner does? And they say, oh, well, it's the machine that you use to cut the hay and then roll it up to pack. I say, oh, like a tractor. Yes, like a tractor. I say, oh, then I know what you're talking about. But otherwise, you cannot guess.
Okay, so that's another thing where I'm learning just A, what you're saying, and then B, combine is the giant thing that gathers the wheat. If you're interacting with someone, you're able to do that. But that's why you would, for something like a conference where you can't interact with a speaker, you would have done your homework, get the information prior to what they're talking
yes.
about.
Yeah.
I can see why you're drawn to like the changes of like getting to work with different people in different environments, because it sounds like
I learn a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting exposed to a lot of things.
I mean, in this business, I learned things that I will have never learned any, other way. I have learned about tires, rubber tires.
Okay.
I have learned about firearms. I have learned about blood, about the different kinds of blood and different, things that I would have never need to learn otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I have learned about how to take your fingerprints and the different kinds of fingerprinting that you can leave behind in a scene. So, yeah.
Do you find it hard to disengage from, like, especially the court stuff? Because you're absorbing information, and I imagine that sometimes in court there's probably some difficult things that you have to interpret. Are you able to
They are.
disengage a little bit?
Mostly, you finish an assignment and move on to something else. You don't really have time to dwell in it.
To let it absorb.
But the things like trials, there are some trials that are, really nasty cases that you end up taking home. But I guess after a while, you kind of develop a plexiglass, shield that, I'm here, but not really here. And because we're playing different roles at the same time, interpreting for the victim and for the defendant and for the police officer and for the judge and for the defense attorney and for the DA, all in the, in one day's work is not as much as if I was being the victim all the time.
I see, yeah.
That will be a lot harder.
I could see that, yeah. So transitioning a little bit, do you have any advice for anyone who's considering a self-employment path? You've had both employment and being self-employed for the bulk of your career.
Save your money because you never know where your next loaf of bread is going to come from. So when you're working on your own, is pretty common to say, okay, I have this money. I can do this. I can do that. I can go on a vacation. But if you don't budget yourself for next month, when you come back from that vacation, it's going to be really hard to pay your mortgage. So budget your money. That will be my best advice for anybody who considers self-employment.
Sounds like a good piece of advice.
And self-employment is not for everybody.
Absolutely.
There is people who absolutely need to have their, paycheck every month for sure on that day. There are other people who are okay. It's like, either feast or famine, right? I got a lot of work this month, got a lot of money, and maybe next month and the next 2 months are going to be very lean months.
Making it work on the long run is what you need to focus on.
And then also, when you work on your own, you say, oh, I don't have a boss. I'm my own boss. That's the biggest lie.
Yeah, that's a fallacy.
You don't have a boss. You have like 50 bosses and you have to keep them all happy.
Right. Every client's a boss.
Yes, absolutely. And you have the freedom, the liberty to say, oh, I don't like him. I don't want to work with him. But if you start doing that with lots of people, then you end up with no job and no money. So.
Yep, I'm aware of that one. Yeah. As far as the reality of not actually really being the boss, you're just you're negotiating the ocean of mini bosses.
And then on the other hand, some people want the security of having a paycheck. Well, I thought I had that. I thought I had the security. I went to work for the state for the security. When I started working for the state, I was making the same amount of money working about 25, 30 hours a week. I was making the same amount of money that I started making with the state working 40 hours a week. I mean, with the state I had the benefits, that I didn't have when I was freelancing before taking the job with the state. But I thought I had bought security. That was the trade-off. Okay, I have security. If I get sick, I still get paid. If I can go on vacation, I'm building my retirement. And then one day it's like, okay, we're gonna cutting your position. It's nothing against you. We really like you. As soon as we have the money to hire interpreters again, we'll call you. But just have to go. And then just like, oh, now what?
Right.
Well, right now I'm on my own. I can see if there is no work here, I can go and look for work somewhere else. I have that freedom that I didn't have when I had the security of the state pay.
Which one you're comfortable with is what you're alluding to, or you said earlier. It's not for everyone, but
It's not for everyone.
for those who it is, then you do have that freedom. That's personally why I'm attracted to it. And I'm also very similar to you, where I like variety and have different things going on.
Like to go on a hike once in a while and take your time. It's just like, okay, I have no work this afternoon. I can just go for a walk, and I don't have to be concerned about anything else. Well, even if there's nothing happening at work, you have to be there till 5:00. It doesn't matter how beautiful the day is.
I know that's one area that freedom or quasi-freedom, I guess, because when you do get work, you need to take it typically.
Yeah.
But I enjoy that ability to have that flexible. And we were talking about that just before we started recording. Of like, I'm leaving for a 5 or 6 day backpacking trip tomorrow out of state, and like for most of my other friends who are on the trip, or some of them that are on the trip, they have to line up that work like as vacation. And they only have a finite amount of vacation a year. But for me, I'm just like, well, I'm just not available to clients during that portion of time.
Like, sorry.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, if you get sick, if you have a boss, you still get paid. You get sick leave.
Right.
When you're freelancing, you get sick, you don't work, you don't get money.
Yeah. Pros and cons.
Yeah.
Well, Cecilia, this has been really good. So how can people get in contact with you?
Well, you can find me on the internet as Cecilia Mihaylo, Spanish interpreter. And you can also find me on the page of the Certified Court Interpreters for the Oregon Judicial Department.
Perfect. And we'll share that in the show notes for people.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time.
Has been a pleasure. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And there you have it. It's been another great conversation. If you want to hear more conversations like this with other self-employed folks, be sure to stay tuned. Until then, this has been The Bossless Path. Catch you next time.